Okay, we'd like to welcome you here this evening to the meeting number 492 of the Town of Grand Falls, Windsor Council. The first order of business tonight, before we get into our regular agenda, is a proclamation that I'll read and sign into the record. Proclamation is for Child Abuse Prevention Month. Whereas children are vital to our province's future success, prosperity, and quality of life, as well as being our most vulnerable assets. Whereas between 2006 and 2012, 10,897 violent crimes were reported against children under the age of 18 in Newfoundland and Labrador. Whereas child abuse continues to be one of our nation's most serious health problems, studies have shown child abuse causes psychological, emotional, and physical harm, which can create lifelong problems for victims of abuse. Whereas every child deserves to grow up in a healthy, safe, and nurturing environment. Whereas child abuse prevention is a community responsibility, and finding solutions depends on the involvement of all people. Whereas this month we emphasize the importance of understanding the devastating problem of child abuse and neglect, and commit to learn more about the behavioral and physical signs of possible abuse. Therefore, I, Barry Manuel, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2018 to be Child Abuse Prevention Month in the Town of Grand Falls, Windsor, and urge all citizens to work together to help reduce child abuse and neglect significantly in years to come. Okay, with that, I'll call the meeting to order. The first order of business is the adoption of minutes from meeting number 491. Any errors or omissions? Hearing none, I'll look for a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Bennett, seconded by Councillor Cody Davis. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Contrary-minded? Motion carried. Any business arising out of the minutes? No business arising. We'll move into the disbursement report. Councillor Cody Davis.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the disbursement report for April the 11th, 2018 be adopted in the amount of $619,856.74.
Okay, it's been moved by Councillor Cody Davis and seconded by Councillor Feener. Any discussion on the disbursement report? No discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary-minded? Motion carried. Move into the committee reports. The first committee this evening, Economic Development, Tourism, and Heritage. Councillor Whiffen.
The Economic Development, Tourism, and Heritage Committee met at 4:30 p.m. on April 9th, 2018. Present were myself, Councillor Shawn Feener, Councillor Rod Bennett, Mayor Barry Manuel, Deputy Mayor Mike Brown, Councillor Amy Cody Davis, Councillor Darren Finn, Jeff Saunders, Town Manager Clerk, Gary Hennessy, Economic Development Officer, Stan Singh, Business Development Officer. Also attending the meeting at 6 p.m. to 6:45 p.m. was Randy Edison of the Environment Resources Management Association. Marketing Projects Review. The Economic Development Officer presented the various marketing projects the development has been working on, including trade show booth background, town tourism brochure, Down Home Expo, Down Home Magazine ad, Atlantic Business Magazine ad, and the Saltscape Expo. Taxi regulations. The committee reviewed the submissions from the 4 taxi companies as well as those from the general public. Several topics were discussed, including a flat rate for community groups proposed by the 4 community groups that made submissions, review the age of the vehicles and the amount of kilometers on each vehicle, inspections of vehicles, as well as codes of conduct or vulnerable sector screenings for drivers. Councillor Finn also presented his motion as well, and it was reviewed. Council and staff will meet with the owners of the taxi companies individually the week of April 30th to May 3rd and gather further information before finalizing the new regulations. Mobile vendor regulations. The committee reviewed the current regulations and made several recommendations, including removing all locations from current regulations, reviewing what current commercial food establishments in the area pay in business taxes, and develop a new seasonal mobile vendor rate based on proximity to these commercial businesses. The Finance Department will review this information and make recommendations to council at their committee meeting later this week. Randy Edison, Environment Resources Management Association. Mr. Edison is the new general manager for the Salmonid Interpretation Center and Sanger Memorial Park. He gave council an overview of IRMA's plans for the coming year, including a new strategic plan, looking at ways to increase revenue and new marketing initiatives. Mr. Edison is also accompanying the Economic Development Officer to the Saltscape Expo in Halifax next week. Farmers Market. The committee discussed the status of the Farmers Market, and it will open it again this summer on High Street beginning on June 23rd. The market will open every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. The committee also reviewed a letter from the chairman of the Farm and Market in Clarenville to purchase their tent for our Farmers Market. The committee recommended that we do not purchase this tent as we have our own tents and they are serving the vendors well. MNL UMC meetings report. The Deputy Mayor, Town Manager, Clerk, and Economic Development Officer attended this event in St. John's on March 14th and 15th. Several topics were covered off, including big data, big ideas, RFP from municipalities, Newfoundland and Labrador, as well as the cannabis presentation by a representative of the NLC. Hospitality in Newfoundland and Labrador, board membership. The Economic Development Officer spoke with the CEO on the makeup of the Board of Directors for Hospitality in Newfoundland and Labrador. Council will consider encouraging local operators to offer themselves to serve on this board in 2019. Community profile update. The Economic Development Officer gave a brief overview of the status of the community profile. The project is progressing well and is about 85% complete. Saltwire Network will produce 100 copies of this profile, and we will also have a digital copy available on the town's website. The draft document will be ready for council's review shortly, and it should be completed by mid-May. Strawberry greenhouses. The committee reviewed a proposal from a local resident to establish several strawberry greenhouses in the community. The proponent is intending to operate year-round. Staff will follow up with this initiative and report back to council. Way forward timber rights. The committee discussed the province's current timber allocation program. Council discussed the issue and are concerned that the allotted amount of timber promised when the mill closed may not be available to the area if the timber is granted to outside interests. The committee recommends that staff review the details on the timber allocation and harvest levels. We need to understand how the increase in allocation will impact the available timber for development opportunities in central Newfoundland. When the Abitibi Mill closed in 2009, government committed a significant timber allocation for future commercial development for this region. Genomics research. The town of Grand Falls-Windsor, through the Excite Corporation, will be hosting a collaborative conference in June for a new research project focused on the anxiety gene. This is a collaboration of the town of Grand Falls-Windsor, Central Health, Dalhousie, and Memorial University. Meals on Wheels. The Meals on Wheels has been completed. The pilot was successful, and the Meals on Wheels Grand Falls-Windsor organization are planning on implementing a full program for the fall of 2018. And under other business, the Chamber of Commerce Trade Show sponsorship request. The committee discussed the request and recommend that the town support the chamber for $500, but that the town receive a free trade show booth. Midwinter Biver post-event meeting, recommendations for 2019. The committee reviewed the report and suggested that a member of council sit in on a similar meeting after the 2019 event. These points will be considered when planning for the Biver for 2019. They also recommended that the committee continue with the Saturday brunch. Departmental action report from February 20th to April 9th, 2018. The committee reviewed the report from the Economic Development Officer. The meeting adjourned at 8:45 p.m., and I move the recommendations and report of this committee.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilor Whiffen. Looking for a seconder. Deputy Mayor Brown. Any discussion on the Economic Development, Tourism, and Heritage minutes? Councilor Finn.
I'll just make a couple of comments, Mr. Mayor, on a couple of times. With respect to the taxi regulations, excuse me, as the minutes indicate, the committee did have a good discussion on the regulations in terms of what the changes could be, and they are outlined there. And we will plan some meetings with the taxi operators and owners over the coming 2 weeks, I imagine. But once council finishes that meeting process, in terms of consulting the owners, and what's not reflected in the minutes is that we did commit, we had a consensus, I believe, in committee that we would actually circulate any changes to that regulation in some public forum before we actually voted on it in the next cycle. So, assuming that we run the next 2 weeks, whenever those meetings happen with operators, we'd probably run up too close to the next public meeting before we had an opportunity to circulate a changed regulation. So that would bump it into the next cycle. I mainly raise that because we targeted, I should say, in our original resolution that we would finish the process by March. So that would obviously lead us into May, which is fine because the work is being done, and that's most important. So I just wanted to add that note that there will be a public engagement process. The other thing, Mr. Mayor, I wanted to speak to was in the minutes here on mobile vendor regulations, it said that reviewing the current commercial food establishments in the area, reviewing what commercial food establishments in the area pay in business tax and developing a new seasonal mobile vendor rate based on proximity to these commercial businesses was listed as a criteria for what council is pondering in terms of a fee that would apply to a mobile vendor. And this states that we'd be looking at it based on proximity. I wouldn't say that's finally determined. I never got it to be finally determined from our committee discussions. I understood that we're going to look at a tax rate that was fair, so that a mobile vendor was taxed fairly in comparison to what a commercial establishment had paid in terms of tax by paying the business tax and property tax, so that they were competing on a fair basis with respect to the town. And not necessarily, this here, if I were to dig into this, it implies that the rate may vary based on whether or not you're close to a takeout in one location or McDonald's in another location. Not that McDonald's is an example in any of our discussions, just one I bring up at the moment. So I interpret the meeting I interpret a little different than the minute, and so I raise it for that point, and I certainly will counsel challenge me if my interpretation is incorrect.
Well, I certainly share the same understanding, Councillor Finn, as you in terms of the discussion that took place, that we had asked staff to check on some commercial establishments, particularly I think we were talking about the downtown area at the time, just because one of the vendors we were talking about last year was in a location on High Street, but we have a broader discussion around all mobile vendors, and the base discussion, which you indicated, was that we want to make sure that all businesses, whether it's mobile or commercial, are being treated fairly, and by looking at the tax rate of a business that has a storefront and has property taxes and water rates and so forth, we want to make sure that mobile vendors are going to be paying a comparative amount as best we can when operating within the community. Proximity is something that has been in our discussions, but certainly there's been no definitive action or any decision made on how a tax rate would vary based on proximity at this point. So I certainly have the same understanding as Councillor Finn, and looking around, it seems like everybody is in agreement. So that will continue to run its course, and I'm glad you clarified that. Any other discussion on the Economic Development, Tourism, and Heritage minutes? Councillor Finn.
One other thing if I could, Mayor, this with respect to the timber rates. I know it's been somewhat in the media lately with respect to a business enterprise that's trying to begin in the Botwood area, or in the town of Botwood, I should say, and some of the issues they've had around acquiring timber rates. And the reason why it's on our agenda is because of the town's support for our historical right to that timber that what Abitibi did use. And so it's important to council, I'm sure you will comment on it, or I hope you will, that 280,000 cubic meters of wood was what the previous PC government committed to us at the time the mill closed, and that commitment never changed. It was reaffirmed many years in a row. And some of that timber was obviously used for other enterprises, but only on one-year renewals. And some of those renewals, I understand, have graduated to 5-year renewals. So council has a fair, and I think it's right to communicate that in a public way, that we may be losing our grip on that timber, and that's clearly unfair. It is a timber resource that should benefit the communities in central Newfoundland, as it always has. And that's all I'll say about that, which is why it was in our discussion. It's very important to this town. It is what founded this town, having that available timber resource, and of course the hydroelectricity. So I just wanted to highlight that from the minutes. I think is important, and I invite you to comment on it as well.
Yeah, well, I think the minute sums it up quite well, and you reiterated the historical commitment that was made to us when the mill closed in 2009, and as you said, we certainly are somewhat, I don't know if worried is the right term, but we are somewhat fearful that the timber that was promised as a beneficial resource for central Newfoundland in light of the mill closure may be controlled by entities outside the central region through these 5-year permits. And if that were to happen, I would suggest that it may be very difficult to get it back. So we want to make sure that we are communicating with our MHAs, and we're communicating with the minister and with government our concerns, which we have. We do have a meeting coming up later this week, as you know, with our local MHA, Minister Hawkins, and anybody in the public who has a concern, as they should, over this fiber resource that's very important to our community and region, we would certainly encourage them to have their voices heard as well. And I would clarify that it's not necessarily anything imminent or any deal that we're aware of right now, just the fact that these 1-year operating permits that have been going on while we're trying to find industry that would utilize that fiber to the benefit of central Newfoundland. Now, if it goes into 5-year and ties up that timber, it pretty much shuts out any opportunity to utilize it in an industrial format. And we have had some projects, as you know. The biofuels was well publicized. Now a wood chip operation potentially for Botwood, which we do support because Botwood is our neighbor in this region, and if a good industrial opportunity happens in the port of Botwood, that is going to benefit Grand Falls-Windsor through economic spin-off services and many other forms. So we're certainly cautious about what's going to happen. We plan to continue to ask questions of government and try to ensure that that commitment remains, because that commitment was clear, as the Councillor Finn had indicated. When the mill closed, the task force was struck. This fiber resource was to be used for the benefit of central Newfoundland. And I mean, no disrespect to other operations in the province, they're all important to the province. But that fiber resource has historically sustained this town. It is what the town had grown from, as Councillor Finn had indicated, and I agree 100%, and for those reasons, we expect that commitment to be upheld, and we look forward to government communicating to us any relevant information so that we can be kept in the loop and be a partner in what happens with that important resource in the future. Any other comment on that, Councillor Feener?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to comment on the mobile vendor regulations, if I could.
Yeah.
I spoke to some small business convenience stores in around our town this last couple of weeks and over the last couple of months. And I got to say, Mr. Mayor, some of them are on hard times, as we can all reflect on. There are a lot of convenience stores are pinching the buck to try and keep their heads above water. And when you get some vendors that are actually going an extra mile to bring in something that helps rejuvenate their business, to help create some financial stability in their business, and for us to look at putting a mobile vendor in the proximity of a business that has got a job to get a paycheck out of it for themselves and stuff, Mr. Mayor, I think that we should really look hard and look very far and hard as to where exactly we locate these mobile vendors. I mean, these mobile vendors every night get to start up their business and drive it home and park it in their driveways, whereas these businesses that are in our town that are trying to make ends meet and trying to increase their business, and they're being basically shortchanged or cut short of any business of customers getting into their business because of these mobile vendors. And don't get me wrong, I really do support mobile vendors. I'm there just as much as anybody else, but I fully think that mobile vendors should be in designated areas in this town, and signage could dictate to the public how to get to these vending machines. The public will find these vendors. But to take a vendor and put them down next to anywhere that's going to be serving the same kind of food and such close range, if you're going to charge them a tax base based on the business already standing there, like I said, at the end of the day, these businesses get to start their machines and go home, and this business is still trying to make ends meet. Thank you.
Yep, thank you, Councillor Feener. And certainly, as you're aware, there's still plenty of discussion to be had on locations and tax rates and all that, so we look forward to further discussion for sure. It is a challenging topic because we want all businesses to survive, and that's where we were coming from in terms of getting more information to be able to determine what a comparative tax rate may be. The location is another factor involved in that decision, and something we will be discussing further, I'm sure. And you want to make sure that you're allowing free enterprise and people to be able to compete fairly as well. So all those things are why we're in the hot seat when it comes to making these decisions. But as I indicated, that discussion will continue, and we look forward to your comments, as everybody else's as well, while we try to work out what the final decision will be. Any other discussion on that or any other topic in those minutes? Hearing none, just a couple of quick comments, I guess. We did meet with Randy Edison, who is the new general manager of IRMA, and I must say I was very impressed with Randy and his excitement. He seems like he's ready to jump in head first, and he has lots of great ideas there for sprucing things up, for trying to increase the traffic at the Salmonoid Interpretation Center. As we all know, it's probably, or not even probably, it is the most famous facility we have here in Grand Falls-Windsor. When tourists come here particularly, they want to know where the Salmonoid Interpretation Center is. They get some 30,000 visitors per year at the center, and the spirit of cooperation needs to be very much at the forefront when it comes to our relationship with IRMA, and I think that's where our meeting focused a lot of attention on, is making sure that we're working together. We know what Randy is doing with IRMA and their committee. They know what the town is doing, so that at the end of the day, both activities and both plans are going to support and benefit each other. And when we consider our riverfront development continuing in the future, and the old mill property and what's going to happen with that, the people who come to the Salmonoid Interpretation Center, we'd like for them to do a lot of other things in Central as well, and I think we can certainly benefit from that relationship, and I thought Randy made a very good presentation, and congratulate him on a new position. The other thing in the minutes there I'll comment very quickly is the midwinter bivver. I remember, you know, I'm going to say 4 or 5 years ago, first when I was on council, when this event was taken from the province, the Venture Central group were no longer going to do it, and we decided that we would take it on, and in the first year it was a struggle. We had trouble selling tickets, we didn't know how many people were going to show up, and it wasn't as successful in the first year as we had hoped. But like anything else, you got to start somewhere, and you could see over the last few years the midwinter bivers continue to gain momentum. More and more people look forward to it each year. We got people now who are coming back each and every year. I think at least 75 to 80% of the registrants in the midwinter biver are out-of-towners. And obviously that's good for the economic impact. So thanks to everybody involved, the support from the province and our own staff who have been driving that event, and we look forward to the midwinter biver going for many years to come. Anything else on the economic development, heritage and tourism, or tourism and heritage? It's a long name. No further comment. We have a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary-minded? Motion carried. There are 2 sets of minutes now for Committee of the Whole. Deputy Mayor Brown, if you would take those one at a time, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Committee of the Whole met at 5 p.m. Tuesday, April 10th. Those in attendance were myself as chair, members Mayor Barry Emanuel, Councillor Rob Bennett, Councillor Amy Cody Davis, Councillor Shawn Feener, Councillor Darren Finn, Councillor Mark Whiffen, and staff in attendance were Jeff Sanders, Town Manager Clerk, Nelson Chapman, Director of Engineering and Works, Keith Antle, Director of Parks and Recreation, and Barry Griffin, our Director of Finance. First order of business, Mr. Mayor, was the Lionel Cullen Hospice. The committee discussed the recent provincial budget and a media report from the chair of the Lionel Cullen Hospice. The committee recommends that a meeting be arranged with the hospice executive to get an update on the project. Data center update. The committee discussed the latest information on the data center project staff have been working with, and the committee discussed the latest information on the data center project. Staff have been working with the company and government for the past 10 months, but the company has decided to put the project on hold. The committee recommends a more detailed press release be prepared this week. Staff reclassifications. The committee discussed information presented on several staff reclassification requests. The committee recommends another meeting be scheduled for Monday, April 16th, 2018 to discuss this issue. The meeting adjourned at 6 p.m. and I move the recommendations and report of this committee.
Okay, it's been moved by Deputy Mayor Brown, seconded by Councillor Cody Davis. Any discussion on the first set of Committee of the Whole minutes? I can, yeah. No comments? Deputy Mayor Brown? No? Okay. Just adjusting yourself in the seat. Councillor Finn.
I'll just comment quickly, Mr. Mayor. Both topics on this set of minutes will be part of a meeting with our own MHA, Minister Hawkins, on Friday of this week anyway, so what's listed in the minutes will be certainly followed up. The Lionel Cullen Hospice is obviously a very important initiative for the community. It's a community-driven initiative. It would be original in Newfoundland and not very, the model doesn't exist in any other places in Atlantic Canada except for New Brunswick, is what I understand. It would be a great initiative for the province to take on. I think the committee has been able to demonstrate that that having a hospice like the Lionel Cullen Hospice that's proposed is a cost-saving measure to government, in that they can allow people in their last days to be in an environment that's more caring and sensitive to what's going on in those personal situations. And you can be away from the hospital setting, which is also double the expense. You know, so it's the human side and it's the business side of it. It totally makes sense, and I think it's important that, and I already know that Council reinforce our support to government, that they get behind this initiative. So I think that's important to say and reiterate from our minutes. And the data center update, well, what can I say? It's on hold. It's disappointing. It's a huge initiative that council's been working on for some time for this town, and there'll be a lot more to say about it in the coming days.
Yep, thank you, Councillor Finn. And just to add on to what you said about the Lionel Kellen House project, obviously as a community volunteer-driven project here, I think everybody has been aware that that project has taken shape, especially since the Presentation Sisters had donated the old renewal center to the group for uses of a hospice. And this did get some media attention a couple of weeks ago. I saw both Minister Tom Osborne, the finance minister, as well as Alan Bradley, the chairman of the committee, and Dr. John Campbell, who is very involved in that project as well. And I guess their message and what people ought to know is that in the provincial budget of 2018, there was some $8 million earmarked for palliative care. And it's really not clear, I guess, how that money is to be distributed and spent. But the committee and, of course, the town as well believes the same, that this would be an excellent place to put some of that $8 million that's been earmarked for palliative care. We only have one official palliative care bed in Grand Falls-Windsor. This facility would have 12 to 15 beds. It would, of course, serve the region. And as Councillor Finn indicated, this is not only a different model of care, which the group very much feels is a more efficient, effective model of care for the patient. And we all know how touchy and how difficult a situation it is, the palliative care for families who would be also comfortable at this new facility, but the financial and the numbers that the Lionel Kellen Hospice Group are talking about would mean that a palliative care patient at the Lionel Kellen Hospice would cost government about half as much as the traditional, conventional palliative care in the hospital environment. So we think, as does the committee, that this is an excellent opportunity for government to put some money towards this project, to look at this as a test project, sort of a pilot initiative, and if indeed it is a better model of care for patients and it is more affordable, then it would be a good idea to initiate it in other areas of the province. We all know how much government is looking at trying to save money in the healthcare budget, and that's one place they can certainly look. And we are meeting with the Lionel Kellen Committee later this week, I believe, next week. And we look forward to continuing to work with them to make that a reality in our community. And thanks to the committee for all the hard work they've done so far, and all the people in the community who've already been giving to this project. You know, they've raised a considerable amount of money, but they cannot do it without the province's support financially. The province has to be on side. The province's commitment to palliative care in other communities. Last year in Corner Brook, there was a long-term care facility that was announced. There's 15 palliative care beds that will be fully funded by the province. So we would expect in Central that government would support palliative care in our region as well, as they should. So thanks for bringing that up. And the data center project, as Councillor Finn said, there will be more to say on that, but as indicated in the minutes, it's a project that we've been working on as a community for the last 10 months to try to get the information necessary to help a company that we've been dealing with who want to come into the province and particularly into Grand Falls-Windsor in the area because they love this area for data center development, and not just a single data center, but a data center campus, as they call it, which would require significant power, which would create good jobs, which would be a huge economic boost to our region and our province. And it was somewhat disappointing, the fact that we as a community had to push this as hard as we did on a daily basis to make sure that we had the appropriate people speaking to each other, because we felt from the onset that that should be government working with that company to make this happen. There will be more detail on that, and I'm sure the media will be more then interested in talking about that particular project. Our town manager, I have to single out on that because, as we all know, he put a tremendous amount of time and effort into this project over the last 10 months. So we're disappointed at this point, but the project is not gone forever, and we hope that government will continue to work with us and companies to make sure that Newfoundland and Labrador is open for business, and that we're finding ways to accommodate these businesses, especially in light of the need in our community and in our province for the influx of money and jobs and the power customer as well. So I won't say any more on that tonight, but there will be a press release that council will be putting out to the media in the next week or two, and we'd certainly have a lot more to say and more details about that project at that time. Any other comments on the first Committee of the Whole minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary minded? Motion carried. Deputy Mayor Brown, Committee of the Whole number 2.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Committee of the Whole met on 6 p.m. Monday, April 16th, 2018. Those in attendance were myself as chair, members Mayor Barry Emanuel, Councillor Rod Bennett, Councillor Mark Whiffen, Councillor Darren Finn, Councillor Ian Cody Davis, Councillor Shawn Feener, and staff included Jeff Sanders, our town manager clerk, Keith Entel, Director of Parks and Recreation, Nelson Chapman, our Director of Engineering, and Barry Griffin, our Director of Finance. First order of business, Mr. Mayor, was the job description. The committee reviewed and revised job descriptions for the positions of Building Inspector and Engineering Administrative Assistant. The committee recommends that the descriptions as attached be approved. Classification, reclassification. The committee reviewed 6 requests for reclassification. Staff have completed a detailed job evaluation and for all positions requested. The committee recommends that the accounting clerk, asset management, and engineering administrative assistant be reclassified to job class 3 and all other requests be denied. The committee also reviewed the classification for the leisure services officer position. The committee recommends this position be approved at a job class 4. The committee also recommends that the job classification scale be amended as attached. Annual performance reviews. The committee discussed the need for annual performance reviews as per our policy. The committee recommends that managers complete performance reviews annually. Job evaluation system. The committee discussed our current job evaluation system and recommends this be reviewed for further discussion and amendment. Traffic light tender. The committee reviewed the tender for the 2018 intersection upgrades and traffic signal installation. The committee recommends that this be awarded to Penny Paving in the amount of $618,960 plus taxes. The amount is under budget by $70,000 and $911. I move the recommendations and report of this committee.
Okay, it's been moved by Deputy Mayor Brown. Looking for a seconder, Councillor Whiffen. Any discussion on this second set of Committee of the Whole minutes? Deputy Mayor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the traffic light tender, as we discussed, it's 2 new sets of lights going in, one at the intersection of Tulit and Hardy, and the other at the in front of the intersection of Cromer Avenue and just in front of our new dealership, Hyundai dealership there. So 2 significant very bad intersections, Mr. Mayor, and it'll be a delight to most residents to have those fixed up and lights installed. We've had complaints for, at least since I've been here, significant complaints about those 2 intersections. So it's good to see the tender awarded for this amount, and people can expect those lights to be installed late summer or early fall, Mr. Director. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chapman. In the fall, he says. So 2 bad intersections about to become a lot safer, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you, Deputy Mayor Brown. And of course, that intersection at Duggan and Cromer will see a lot more traffic as well with the land behind Hyundai being developed and some future businesses in that area, which will make that traffic intersection that much more complicated and potentially dangerous. One thing I'll mention, because I know a lot of people, when you think about the traffic lights or really any capital priority, it's a challenge for council sometimes to, identify how much money that you have to work with, where are you going to spend the money, and we recognize that there are a number of intersections in town that, could use traffic lights or traffic calming, but unfortunately, like anything, you can't do it all because you just don't have the money to be able to do it all at one time, and that's why we try to determine what the best intersections would be in this case to put traffic lights. I know a lot of people, and I'm sure council have heard, why not put a roundabout in the intersection of Tulip Drive and Hardy Avenue particularly? I know a lot of residents have mentioned to me, why not put a roundabout there? We did explore that option, as I'm sure we always will, and any time we have work to be done to an intersection, we will take into consideration all the different options that exist. In this particular case, in discussions with our engineering department, it was determined that the roundabout, for one thing, in that area would be a more expensive venture than the traffic lights because of the area of land that would be required in order to construct a roundabout in that area, and meaning that some land that's privately owned would have to be expropriated and purchased for fair market value. In addition to the work, you would have more than a single lane in this case as well, which also complicates matters. So we just felt at the end of the day, for economic and practical reasons, that the traffic lights would be the best option there. Correct, Mr. Director? Nothing you'd like to add to that? Okay. So, I mean, just to fill people in, because again, right, people ask why are you not putting a roundabout, but we'd like to consider all options, and in this case, traffic lights appear to be the best one, so that's why that's happening. Any other comments? Councillor Finn.
Yeah, thank you. I will add, Mr. Mayor, with respect to the roundabouts, I'm also a very big proponent and supporter of them, and in addition to your comments, I will say that the engineering department does have a report actually on the analysis to place a roundabout there versus the traffic lights. And so in addition to what you said, it was more determined that there's just no space there to fit it in with all of the intersecting or all the inbound lanes that would run into it. So it just wasn't determined to be viable from a space perspective. That's in fact if you could actually buy the land.
Right.
And not necessarily you could assume that people could give up land, in particular there in front of the new home hardware location.
That's right.
I think they would like to get some land.
Yes.
I just wanted to add 3 points, Mr. Mayor, from the minutes. And this probably back to some discussion we had as a new council back in September with respect to attachments. There are there's 2 references here to attachments that I'm not sure are attached when the minutes are posted publicly. The job descriptions. The committee recommends descriptions as attached be approved, is the first comment. So clearly, I think we all understand that if we say something is attached, they have to be attached when we post it. I think we have a broader discussion. There's probably more documents we could be adding, but we never ever finished that discussion. And on reclassification and classifications, it also says at the very last sentence, if I could draw your attention to that, the committee also recommends that a job classification scale be amended as attached. So, again, that would need to be attached. The third point, Mr. Mayor, or topic I wanted to address was the annual performance reviews. The committee recommends that managers complete performance reviews annually. In that statement, that probably was the intent or interest of council. However, I think there's more to it than directing that we do performance. There has to be a performance review system put in place, managers, which we don't have. So it's more than asking managers to go and start doing performance reviews. There has to be a systematic process of training, carrying the performance reviews, and record keeping and all of that that goes with such a process. So there's more to it than from this minute, which directs performance reviews to start with no further explanation. So there's more to it than the minute explains is all I want to highlight.
Okay, thanks for that. Any other comment, discussion on the second set of Committee of the Whole minutes? Deputy Mayor Brown.
Comments, Mr. Mayor, with respect to the annual performance reviews, we are in the process of having an operational review, or have an operational review from an outside source, so I think we should actually ask them to have a look at that and to assist their directors and how these annual performance reviews should be done and when they should be done and stuff like that. So something we can look forward to in the operational review.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Brown. Any other comment? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary-minded? Motion carried. Parks, Recreation, and Special Events. Councilor Bennett.
Thank you, Mayor. Minutes for Parks, Recreation, Special Events, 6 p.m. Tuesday, April 10th, 2018. Present myself as chairman. Members, Deputy Mayor Mike Brown, Councillor Amy Cody Davis, Mayor Barry Manuel, Councillor Shawn Feener, Councillor Darren Finn, Councillor Mark Whiffen. Staff was Jeff Saunders, Town Manager Clerk, Keith Andel, Director of Parks and Recreation. Men's and Mixed Softball Leagues. The committee discussed correspondence from the men's and mixed softball leagues about maintenance issues they require before the league starts in May. They also requested an extension to their clubhouse. The committee recommends the Director of Parks and Recreation reply to their request stating that they will look after maintenance issues within the next month, and we will investigate the cost of renovate the clubhouse in 2019. The Director will also send correspondence to all summer user groups listing what the town provides for their user fees. The Exploits Aboriginal Community Group correspondence. The committee discussed correspondence with the Exploits Aboriginal Community Group requesting assistance with their second annual Malawi scheduled for June 22nd to the 24th, 2018. The committee recommends $500 donation as well as providing necessary equipment such as barbecues. Community organization grants. The committee discussed community organization grants in the Y2C, the Exploits Archery Club, and the Grand Falls-Windsor Gator Swim Club. The committee recommends to deny the submission from the Y2C as they had just received a large amount of funding from the provincial government, which we helped them apply for. The committee also recommends to approve $500 grant for the Archery Club and a $1,000 grant to the Grand Falls-Windsor Gator Swim Club. The IMBA Canada proposal. The committee discussed a proposal from the International Mountain Biking Association to provide us with a trail assessment, the staff maintenance training session, and a written trail report with recommendations to complete our mountain bike trail. The estimated cost of this proposal is $10,380. The committee recommends accepting this proposal and for the Director of Parks and Recreation to make the necessary arrangements to have the IMBA Canada travel to Grand Falls-Windsor to complete this assessment in June 2018. Joel Byrne Memorial Trophy cases. The Director of Parks and Recreation presented the committee with an update on the reorganizing of the Joel Byrne Memorial Trophy cases, which all the new plaques and signage needed. The director requested $3,500 to help finish this project. The committee recommends using existing funds from the Parks and Recreation Department operating budget to complete this project. Windsor Stadium plant repairs. The Director of Parks and Recreation presented the committee with an invoice of $19,324.36 from Simcoe Refrigeration for the repairs to the plant in the Windsor Stadium. The committee recommends the Director of Parks and Recreation meet with the manager of Simcoe Refrigeration to discuss the invoice, as there are several items on the invoice that the Director feels are inaccurate. 2018 Provincial Recreation Newfoundland and Labrador Awards Program. The Director of Parks and Recreation presented the committee with the nomination details for the 2018 Provincial Recreation Newfoundland and Labrador Awards Program. The committee recommends the Director put forward individuals and organizations from Grand Falls-Windsor for several of these awards. Recreation facility renaming. The committee discussed the renaming of our recreation facilities and some of the rooms in these facilities. Individual names have been put forward to name buildings after in recognition of their outstanding efforts and contributions to different areas of recreation. The committee recommends the Director investigate possible candidates and report back to the committee in a future meeting. The Director's report. The Director presented the committee with a detailed list of events and activities in the Parks and Recreation Department have operated in the past few weeks, as well as a list of upcoming events, activities, and program. The meeting adjourned at 9:40 p.m. I move the recommendation and report of this committee.
Okay, it's been moved by Councillor Bennett, seconded by Deputy Mayor Brown. Any discussion, comment on the Parks, Recreation, Special Events minutes? Councillor Feener.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just want to comment on the recreation facility renaming. The minute says the committee recommends that the Director investigate possible candidates, and that would be for naming facilities or rooms, and report back to the committee at the future. I was wondering if I could get clarification on how that investigation will occur. Is that like a public call or for interest, or how, and what buildings would be named?
No, I think we had asked the Director to check on some other names that were put forward at the meeting, and the discussion was more about, there were some names put forward in the past, and we wanted to make sure that we were given fair attention, I guess, or consideration to other names that we may not be considering, because when you start naming facilities or rooms, it needs to be a significant contribution, but it also needs to make sure you're not going to have people coming and saying that, well, why didn't you name it this person? And because they did more for skiing than someone else, or that sort of thing. So whether it's going to be a public calling, it's not my understanding at this point that we're going public with it, but it's certainly something I think we may want to consider in the future for that very reason, as I just pointed out, to make sure that we're being fair in that process of naming facilities, if we even decide to do that, because I don't think we were in agreement, or there was no consensus there that we would be naming facilities in recognition or memory of people at this point. Sounded confusing to me. Did that answer sound as confusing to you?
Well, no, I perfectly understand your response, but the thing was with the minute is that I didn't understand we left the discussion with a conclusion that we're doing anything more than going to continue the discussion. I didn't understand that we provided any direction that there would be an investigation. And so if there is like a public investigation or inquiries with groups or individuals for naming, then I certainly think that should be in a public forum, so that everybody gets the chance to put forward their ideas. Unless, in fact, if council decides to move in that direction at all, of course, I recognize that's an option as well.
Yep, I would agree with that. Any other comment on the Parks, Recreation, Special Events minutes? Just one point for me with regards to the International Mountain Biking trail report consult that we plan to have. There is a person from that organization who is going to be visiting Grand Falls-Windsor from British Columbia, who has extensive experience in mountain biking, and I just wanted to let the citizens know that the $10,380 that is being spent there is money that is already a part of the ski trail project funding. This is not new funding. It doesn't require new funding. It exists through that program, and will be a big benefit, I think, not only to our mountain biking trail there, but to potential trail building exercises in the future to gain some expertise in that area. Mountain biking is a growing activity, I think, and something that we would like to encourage our residents to take part in. So getting that expertise here and having a written report, sort of a consultant's report at the end, I would suggest is a good thing. And it may not sound like it to some people, but being around the table here for the last 5 years, $10,000 for a consultant's report is it's a pretty good deal.
Well spent.
Okay, so if there's no other comment on the Parks, Recreation, and Special Events minutes, we've got the mover and a seconder. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary-minded? Motion carried. Salmon Festival, Councilor Feener.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Salmon Festival Committee met at 4:30 Wednesday, April 11th of 2018. Members present, myself, Chair, Mayor Barry Manuel, Deputy Mayor Mike Brown, Councillor Amy Cody Davis, Councillor Mark Whiffen, Councillor Darren Finn. Staff, Barry Griffin, Director of Finance and Human Resources, Jeff Saunders, Town Manager Clerk, Keith Antle, Director of Parks and Recreation, and Todd Mercer, Assistant Director of Parks and Recreation. Concert sponsorships. The committee reviewed the sponsorships for this year's concert. The committee recommends that the staff finalize all concert sponsorships in advance of the concert launch. Festival sponsorships. The committee reviewed the festival sponsors. The committee recommends that staff contact all festival sponsors to renew this year's sponsorship. The committee also recommends that staff identify any new potential sponsors. Festival marketing. The committee reviewed a proposal for radio advertising for the concert and festival events. The committee recommends that this be further discussed at the next meeting. The committee also recommends a marketing plan, including use of social media, be presented for the committee's review of the at our next meeting. Concert. The committee reviewed the break-even analysis for the concert, and the committee recommends the acceptance of this budget. Gospel break-even. The committee reviewed the budget for the gospel concert, and the committee recommends acceptance of this budget. Salmon dinner. The committee reviewed the budget for salmon dinner, and the committee recommends acceptance of this budget. Grand Falls-Windsor Day. The committee reviewed the budget for Grand Falls-Windsor Day. The committee recommends acceptance of this budget. Concert announcement. The committee announced that the press release for the Salmon Festival concert will be held at 10 a.m. on April 24th in the council chambers. Council would like to invite the business community and the general public to attend this event. Meeting adjourned at 6 p.m. I move the recommendations of this committee, of the report of this committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Feener. It's been moved by Councilor Feener, seconded by Councilor Bennett. Any discussion on the Salmon Festival minutes? Councilor Finn.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Now, I know I commented on this earlier, but with respect to the line item there, the gospel break-even, the committee recommends and accepts this budget. The budget was presented. I did reiterate earlier that I was not supportive of that event, and with being in the minutes in the manner that it is, I will reiterate that I continue to be not supportive of it. I believe it's an additional event that introduces an additional risk that's not necessary to have a successful Salmon Festival weekend, and I just wanted to restate my position with respect to that.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Finn. Deputy Mayor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think the gospel concert is going to be a huge success. I think Councillor Feener did his homework on the concert, went around, got a significant sponsor in the form of $10,000, met with all the church groups, and came with loaded with information that every indication is that this gospel concert is going to be a tremendous success. I think the Assistant Director of Parks and Recreation has also done some work on it, and Keith's department there, so every indication is that this will be a sold-out event, and it'll be a good event for the town of Grand Falls-Windsor. So I look forward to the event, Mr. Mayor.
Certainly hope you're right, and certainly appreciate, I'm sure Councilor Finn does too, and, but in terms of assuming another level of risk in that, that's certainly true. I would agree with that. Councilor Bennett.
Thank you, Mayor. Looking at the gospel concert, to me, the Salmon Festival weekend is for everybody, and putting the gospel concert in there, that will include that part of the weekend also, and it'll just expand and make the Salmon Festival that much better. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Bennett. Any other comments? Yeah, Councilor Feener.
Yeah, just back to the gospel concert there, you talk about the church support and stuff, like the churches, all denominations have come together and formed their own committee, Mr. Mayor, just on this concert alone. So, the hot topic with all the church groups right now is, parking space, shuttle buses, and the whole 9 yards, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Feener. Any other comment? Councillor Finn?
Just one final comment, Mr. Mayor. I'm certainly hopeful that it succeeds because it's in everybody's best interest that it does succeed. But the basis of my opposition to it is that I have seen it tried 2 other times and it has cost the town an expense. I'm hopeful that this time will be different. I recognize the work that Councillor Feener has put into it and staff, and it's certainly the discussion council has had on it. But the track record doesn't prove it. That doesn't mean that it can't succeed. I'm just saying that's the basis of my decision. And I hope that the church organizations step up and make sure that the participation is there that needs to make it pay for itself.
Yeah. I think everybody certainly wants all of our Salmon Festival events to be successful, and we look forward to this year's festival and the fact that in the minutes, next Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. here in this chamber, we will release the details of the Salmon Festival concert and perhaps the rest of the events as well if we're ready to do so. So next Tuesday, the cat will be out of the bag. We'll know who's coming to this year's Salmon Festival. I will say, personally, I think we got a nice concert, a good concert this year that could rival concerts we've had in recent years and something that everybody can enjoy. So we look forward to that announcement, and Councillor Feener certainly will be on hand and taking care of that as chair of our Salmon Festival this year. Any other comment on the Salmon Festival minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary-minded? Motion carried. Finance and Administration, Councillor Cody Davis.
Thank you, Mayor. The Finance and Administration Committee met at 6:30 on Wednesday, April the 11th of 2018. In attendance, myself as the chair, Councillor Darren Finn, Councillor Mark Whiffen, Mayor Barry Manuel, Councillor Shawn Feener, and Deputy Mayor Mike Brown. Staff were Jeff Saunders, the Town Manager Clerk, and Barry Griffin, the Director of Finance and HR. The labor report, the committee reviewed the labor costs as of week 13. Total labor was $764,012, and this was $15,952, or 2.1% over budget. The committee recommends that staff continue to monitor labor costs. Cash collections. The committee reviewed taxation collections for March 31st, 2018. Total taxation receivable as of that date was $5,991,542 compared to $5,919,034 in 2017. And that's an increase of $72,508 or 1.23% from the previous year. The disbursement report, the committee reviewed the disbursement report in the amount of $619,856 and recommends this be presented at the next council meeting. Capital Asset Management Plan, the committee reviewed the proposed funding for the Capital Asset Management Plan. Total cost is $62,500 and the town share is $12,500. The committee recommends that FCM funding in the amount of $50,000 be applied for. The committee also recommends that the town share be approved in the amount of $12,500, contingent on approval of the FCM funding. Department year-end reports. The committee reviewed the department year-end reports for the Finance Department, Human Resources, and Taxation Assessment. The committee was pleased with the reports as presented. Defined Benefit Statement Investment Policy. The committee reviewed the Defined Benefit Statement Investment Policy and recommends that it be accepted. Public Procurement Framework. The committee was advised that the Public Tender Act has been amended and renamed to the Public Procurement Act effective March 24th, 2018. The committee directs staff to ensure that the town complies with the new legislation. Funding requests. The Children's Wish Foundation of Canada. The committee received a request from the Children's Wish Foundation of Canada to support the Princess and Hero Tea Party fundraiser taking place in Grand Falls, Windsor on June 9th. The committee recommends that $500 be approved. Forest Park Primary. The committee received a request from Forest Park Primary, and the committee recommends this be referred to Parks and Recreation Department for in-kind assistance. Sparkling Blades. The committee received a request from the Sparkling Blades to sponsor an advertisement in this year's program booklet. The committee recommends we provide sponsorship for a full-page ad. The Salvation Army. The committee received a request from the Salvation Army in support of the Red Shield Appeal, and the committee recommends $500 be approved. The Harmsworth Public Library. The committee received a request from the Harmsworth Public Library to provide financial supports towards minor renovations to the library, particularly an improvement to the youth reading area. The committee recommends that $500 be approved. The M&L Report. The committee reviewed a request to provide sponsorship for the scheduled April 20th to 21st meetings in Grand Falls, Windsor, and the committee recommends $500 be approved for this. Request regarding taxation. The committee reviewed a request for a reduction of taxes due to business loss experienced related to town capital works. The committee recommends that this request be denied. Mobile vendors tax rate. The committee reviewed assessment and taxation of food establishments in the downtown area. The committee recommends this issue be further discussed at the next finance meeting. And our meeting adjourned at 8:30 p.m. and I move the recommendations and report of the committee.
Okay, it's been moved by Councillor Cody Davis. Looking for a seconder. Deputy Mayor Brown, any discussion on the finance and administration minutes? Councillor Bennett.
I'd like to talk about the Children's Wish Foundation, the Hero Tea Party, Princess and Hero Tea Party. This is something that I'm involved with also. I offer myself, my business to this organization, Children's Wish, and everything that I collect that day, I give 100% back to the Children's Wish. I ask any resident of Grand Falls Windsor to come out and make a donation to this very worthwhile cause. It takes $10,000 to grant a wish, and Grand Falls Windsor after granting a nice few wishes. So if we could get the citizens of Grand Falls Windsor to support this event, that would be absolutely wonderful. Thank you.
A great organization for sure. Do we know where that is going to take place yet, the actual venue? At Windsor
Yes.
Pentecostal Church, okay, on June the 9th. So yeah, we'd encourage people to come out. It's a new venture for them. We've got a very active Children's Wish group here in town. And the Wish pools, actually this year, the hockey pools, the annual pools that they sell each year, playoff time, there was a waiting list to get pools this year. So they printed 1,000 and they had them all gone and people looking for more. So I'm willing to bet that next year they're going to print 1,500. Good for them, and it is a great cause. So thanks, Councillor Bennett. Any other discussion, comment?
There is no time of day on that, December 9th.
On June the 9th? Yeah, no time right now, but I'm sure if you check social media, you contact a member of the Children's Wish or Councillor Bennett. I think Krista Carroll is involved in that as well.
It is on Facebook as well. They have a page, Children's Wish Foundation page, and I'm sure the details are on there. It's not, the time is not listed in the letter either.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the
But I
time-
think it's on, they do have an event set up on Facebook, so if you search Children's Wish Foundation Princess and Hero Tea Party, it will bring you to that event, and you can check whether you're going or you're interested, and you'll get push notifications then as well on the event as it draws closer.
Yeah, and I'm sure as it draws closer that they'll be doing extra media and the
Absolutely,
radio will
yeah.
have it and that kind of stuff. So mark it in your calendars for that date and time pending right now. Any other comments on the finance and admin minutes? Councillor Cody Davis.
Just on the Harmsworth Public Library, just wanted to note that the $500 donation that we've agreed to make to the library, the Harmsworth Public Library, as we know, is a provincial government initiative, and they provide the funding for the operation of the library. But a lot of the improvements and furniture, books, different things that once they go outside of the allotted budget, they purchase a lot on their own, and they do that through donations made from residents. A lot of times they get donations, in memory of someone who has passed who spent time at the library. Different user groups who use the library for functions and things like that. And like if you visit the library, and I recommend that you do because it is a beautiful library, and I think it's underutilized. We should probably be accessing it more. But they have a children's reading area that the library purchased, a mat, some cute little hand shaped chairs, different types of books. And just kind of prettied up the reading area and made it, more user-friendly, more friendly to children. They have the other area, like an adult area, where they have different types of chairs there with a pull-over desk where you can sit with a laptop or a tablet. And now they're looking at making some improvements to a youth area because they realize that, they are lacking in that area, making it more user-friendly and accommodating and inviting to youth to get them back to using the library as well. So this $500 donation, I think, will be appreciated for sure from the library, and I would certainly encourage members of the community in that as well, not just to use the library, but to remember them when you're collecting in memory of somebody or in fundraising efforts. A lot of times we support, you support the food bank, you support the SPCA and all other worthy charities, but I would encourage them to remember the library as well when they're considering, what organizations and charities are going to support.
Yep, well said. The library, of course, is a great resource, as you said, and, they do great work up there. I know I used to go to the parents and preschooler, parents tots reading, and they have seniors events up there. So, you may not be aware of some of the things that they're doing up there.
Summer reading program for children where they have a weekly program for 4 weeks in July. They do different crafts, they introduce the kids to different books. They, we always have during Winterlude. The library always has an event up there, and Gus the Moose goes up and participates in a reading circle and things like that. So lots of things going on there that people probably aren't aware of.
Yeah, thanks for that. Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Mayor. The Children's Wish Foundation Princess and the Heroes Tea Party will be held on June 9th at Windsor Pentecostal Church from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m.
Okay, quick work, good investigative work there.
Thank you.
2 p.m. to 4 p.m. All right, anything else on the finance and administration minutes? Okay, we got a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary minded? Motion carried. Public Works and Planning, Deputy Mayor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Public Works and Planning Committee met 6 p.m. Tuesday, April 12th, 2018. Those in attendance were myself as chair, Councillor Amy Cody Davis, Councillor Darren Finn, Mayor Barry Emanuel, Councillor Mark Whiffen, Councillor Shawn Feener, and staff in attendance were Jeff Sanders, Town Manager Clerk, and Nelson Chapman, Director of Engineering and Works. First, and also attending the meeting were Adam and Angelica Party, and they attended the meeting from 6 to 7 p.m., and they were their first order of business. And Adam and Angelica Party were welcome to the meeting to discuss with the committee their concerns on the proposed rezoning of Dwyer Street. They reside at 40 McCarthy Street, and the proposed quadplex would be constructed directly behind their property. Mr. and Mrs. Party are concerned with the type of structure that may be built, possible effects to their property value, and future privacy. The developer has yet to meet with the parties to discuss. After discussion, the committee recommends the Director of Engineering and Works arrange an in-person meeting between the parties and the developer to discuss the items of concern. The outcome of this meeting is to be brought back to the committee for further discussion. Adam and Angelica Party were excused from the meeting at 7 p.m. 10 Carmelite Road and the sewer line. The committee reviewed a request from Mr. Brad Roach and Ms. Rhonda Wiseman to reroute a sewer line that crosses 10 Carmelite Road to facilitate the construction of their new home. The house has been designed to accommodate the residents, and the location on the lot needs to be on the northern boundary to fit the design. The designer overlooked the obstacle during the design phase. The committee recommends that this house be repositioned to avoid the sewer to see if this would satisfy their needs. This would mean placing the dwelling further back into the lot. 2 Fairview Heights, subdivide land. The committee reviewed a request from Mr. Adam Glavine to subdivide 2 Fairway Heights to accommodate construction of a new residence. The preliminary plan conforms to the development regulations. The committee recommends this be approved in principle. The availability of water and sewer must be confirmed. Mr. Glavine must also agree to provide a turnaround at the end of Fern Place, and across to the new lot must be from Fern Place, and access to the new lot, Mr. Mayor, must be from Fern Place. Civic number. The committee discussed concerns of emergency services having difficulty finding an address that has both a numeric and alphabetic designation, such as 10A. Typically, alphabetic designations will be for an apartment or section attached to the main dwelling and not an independent lot or dwelling. The committee recommends that moving forward, all subdivided lots that fit the criteria must have a designation of 1/2 if independent and A if an apartment. This will eliminate confusion when searching for an address. The committee also recommends for further information on the total number of existing dwellings that currently fit this criteria. And just to note, Mr. Mayor, what we're trying to implement here is that if 2 numbers on the same street are the same, 45 with standalone is 45, and the next number will be 45.5. Excuse me. Not 45A, because emergency services personnel would think 45A is on the back of number 45, which is typically how it's done these days. Abandoned vehicles. The town currently stores abandoned vehicles on town property when they are seized. These vehicles have been in the town's possession well beyond 90 days, as stated in the traffic regulations. Current vehicle of concern was seized over 2 years ago. The committee recommends the Public Works Department make arrangements to dispose of the vehicle, as the owner has had ample opportunity to obtain the vehicle. Moving forward, the committee recommends that staff adhere to the traffic regulations and the timelines. Final decision to dispose will come from council after the 90 days has expired. Curb and sidewalk work on Carmelite Road. The committee reviewed a request from Mr. Terry Brown to have curb and sidewalk installed on Carmelite Road and the road upgraded. The committee recommends this be added to the list for future capital projects. Tender, Grenfell Heights water main installation. A tender to upgrade a section of the Grenfell Heights water line and storm sewer closed on April 9th, 2018. There were 7 bidders, with the lowest bidder being Adams Construction Limited in the amount of $798,557.70, including HST. This was $46,000 under budget. The committee recommends that this tender be awarded to Adams Construction Limited. Plumbing inspections. The committee reviewed additional information previously requested concerning plumbing inspections, procedures of other jurisdictions, as well as potential costs of inspections were discussed. The committee recommends that further discussion is needed at the next Public Works and Planning Committee meeting before making a decision. However, the committee is considering implementing plumbing inspections as part of the requirement of the building permit moving forward. Trans-Canada Highway Beautification RFP. The RFP for the upgrading and enhancement of the Trans-Canada right-of-way corridor through Grand Falls-Windsor closed on March 22, 2018. There were 2 bidders, and an evaluation committee needs to review the proposals and make a recommendation. The committee recommends that Deputy Mayor Brown, Councillor Finn, the town manager, clerk, and the director of engineering works complete the evaluation as outlined in the RFP and report back to the committee. The meeting adjourned at 8:30 p.m. and I move the recommendations and report of this committee.
Okay, it's been moved by Deputy Mayor Brown. Seconded by Councillor Cody Davis. Any discussion on the Public Works and Planning minutes? Councillor Whiffen.
I just want to refer to the civic numbering issue that was discussed. That's something I brought up some time ago. In our minutes, we just noted that on a go-forward basis, we would be applying this policy largely on the fact that there are costs associated with changing the address. But we also noted that if there's anybody that found themselves in this situation and want to change their address, that we'd also accommodate that as well.
Yep. Thanks for that. Any other discussion? Councillor Finn.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to speak to the minute with respect to plumbing inspections. Because staff had come forward with a proposal that council consider having plumbing inspections done as part of the building permit process when new properties are built, so that before an occupancy permit could be received, you would have to get your plumbing inspection done, like your electrical inspection and a construction inspection. So all the phases of construction be built. So that would be a new step for the town of Grand Falls-Windsor to have that. It's not new in construction standards or what municipalities would have in place, but I think it's important to highlight it here in the minutes, because the committee actually had intended to, through the minutes, to let the public know that we're considering that. And over the next 3-week period, if there's people who have concerns about that or are supportive of it, they should make it known either to the town manager or any councillor, or of course yourself the mayor, as mayor, and get that feedback to us so that we can, over the next couple of weeks, have a good informed discussion on that. Because short of input from the public, we'll have to go on the information that we have. And I'd certainly welcome contractors in the community who are building homes, who may wonder about what the cost would be for inspection, or what the process would be. Whether or not I'd like to hear from journeyman plumbers, whether or not there are any issues that we need to have considered when we develop policy, if in fact we do decide to develop policy, because not having policy is also an option. And of course, just members of the general public who are building homes. If they have any input, we welcome all input from all areas, and just wanted to reiterate that and reinforce that's why it's in the minutes, is that it's a council topic of consideration to have plumbing inspections. So welcome input, and that can come through any one of us. And we'll make sure it's shared. Anything I get, I'll certainly share with everybody.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to reinforce that, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thanks for that. And I guess the town could also post on their social media, Facebook particularly, that we're looking for that input so that we can make sure that we can get that message out to as many people as possible. Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Mayor. With regards to the numbering of the houses, until this gets implemented, I asked the residents of Grand Falls-Windsor, if you're calling fire, police, or an ambulance, please be specific. If you live in an apartment, the numbering of the house, just be specific, give whatever information you can to those emergency services. Thanks.
Yeah, it's important to do so because, as Councillor Whiffen said, you know, there are some, I believe you spoke to it, there are some residences, oddly, that, you know, the A number is actually a separate dwelling next door, and it can get very confusing. And when you're thinking about emergency services, whether it be fire, ambulance, or otherwise, those few seconds are very crucial and could even be life-saving. So that's a good point. And I would add as well on the civic numbering, because it reminds me of another topic that we've been trying to get across to citizens, and I know we've been checking sections of town as time goes on, but it's required by town bylaw for all residents to have clearly numbered houses. So you should have the number of your street address on your house. If you live in an area which is set back from the road far enough that it's difficult to see that number, then you should have your number presented closer to the road. And again, just for the emergency, especially the emergency needs at times, you're looking at addresses, you're trying to track the numbers, and if houses do not have numbers, it can get very confusing, and it could really make a difference in terms of an emergency response. So we will be continuing our efforts to make sure that everybody does have civic numbering on their houses, but we'd ask that you take the time to do that if you do not indeed have it right now, because it is town bylaw to have them. Thanks, Councillor Bennett. Yeah, Councillor Feener.
Yeah, back to the civic addresses and stuff, Mr. Mayor. There are still some streets in Grand Falls-Windsor that still have pretty well the same name. So, I mean, I know at some point it should be addressed again, especially for medical and fire emergencies and stuff. Thank you.
Yeah, that is not a topic that hasn't already been discussed, and we look forward to your comments on that, because of course that was the previous council that had some very spirited debate about that very topic. There are a number of streets in town. If I remember correctly, there's probably 8 to 10 streets in town that have common names. Exploits, Cater, Hill, Earl, and there are several others. And we did have a pretty heavy debate on that. There was a lot of good points raised. One good thing that came out of previous discussion, and we certainly welcome further discussion when you want to do that, is that we reached out to all the different emergency services in town to make sure that they were aware of those streets that are in our community. They assured us that they were, and we asked them to make sure that their employees, whether it be the ambulance, paramedics, or the fire department, are aware. And again, we sent out as well correspondence to all the streets that are in those categories and asked them the same thing as Councillor Bennett mentioned with the civic numbering, to ensure that if they are calling for emergency services, that they're being clear on whether they're Earl Street or Earl Place, to make sure that they're clear, the respondents know that there's some confusion around it. And that is what the decision was made the last time we discussed it, but look forward to discussing it again. And I know there's still a lot of people in town that would like to see that change made, and some people, of course, on council may still like to see that change made. And given that we've got a new council, we don't know where the majority will fall this time when we discuss it, so I look forward to it. Any other discussion on the Public Works and Planning minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Contrary minded? Motion carried. We do have a resolution there to read into the record and adopt. Deputy Mayor Brown, if you would.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Dated Grand Falls-Windsor, 2018-262. Resolution, Federation of Canadian Municipalities Program. Whereas the town of Grand Falls-Windsor directs staff to apply for a grant opportunity from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Municipal Asset Management Program for the completion of the town's asset management plan, including all supporting documentation. And whereas this program will be completed by Mr. Milos Posevec, a PhD student with the University of Waterloo, who specializes in the completion of asset management programs. And whereas the town of Grand Falls-Windsor commits to $12,500 from the budget toward the cost of this initiative, therefore be it resolved that the town of Grand Falls-Windsor commits to conducting the following activities in its proposed project submitted to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Municipal Asset Management Program to advance their asset management program. 1, analysis of existing information's nature, format, and flow. 2, creation of infrastructure, modeling parameters. And number 3, forecasting of infrastructure needs and performance. And I propose the motion, Mr. Mayor, the resolution.
Okay, it's proposed by Deputy Mayor Brown and seconded by Councillor Whiffen. Any discussion on the proposed resolution? Deputy Mayor Brown.
For clarification, the town of Grand Falls-Windsor applies for gas tax money from the federal government on an annual basis. And the federal government are bringing in new rules and regulations that all municipalities have to have an asset management program. This is new to most, but certainly been on our agenda for quite some time now. So we've selected a PhD student from the University of Waterloo who specializes in asset management and actually applies for assistance for the federal government for us, for the municipality. So at some point in the future, the town of Grand Falls will have an asset management program whereby if 2022 pops up, we'll know that we need to have a look at the water and sewer work on 2nd Avenue or work at the paving work on Goodyear Avenue. So the plan dictates where we go with a lot of our capital projects moving into the future. So just wanted to explain that, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Deputy Mayor Brown. It certainly is a pretty tedious and complicated process, but a very beneficial one at the end of the day, as you just alluded to be able to track your core infrastructure, particularly for depreciation and to determine where your priorities should lie with your sidewalks, with your paving, with your water and sewer and other infrastructure is very important. And our staff's been doing a lot of work already, and it will be a huge piece of work as we continue. And this particular project would be very helpful in shaping how we proceed with that particular piece of work. So we do have a proposer and a seconder for this resolution. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Contrary-minded? Motion carried. Any notice of motion? No notice of motion. We'll move into other business. And first up tonight is Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Mayor. I got a thank you and a congrats coming out tonight. I got a thank you to the St. Joseph's Soup Kitchen. The volunteers do an absolutely wonderful job. It brings our community closer together. Last Wednesday, some members of the council attended the Recreation Department supplied the food for it, and we had about 100 people show up for dinner. The dinner was absolutely wonderful. I got to see some old friends there, and it was a wonderful event, and each Wednesday that goes ahead. This is probably going to be spoke on again, but I got a congratulations going out to, it seems like the last time I was here, or the time before, we were congratulating one of our own for going to the Broyer. This time I'd like to congratulate Tyler Whiffen for winning the Herder Memorial Championship this past weekend. That makes two in the Whiffen family and not Mark. But AJ and Tyler are now Herder champions. They have a wonderful year. Congratulations to the Whiffens on their having two goalies, of course. And I know what it's like having a goalie, how expensive it is. I can't imagine having two. Yeah. Well, congratulations to the Whiffens. Thank you.
Congratulations to Tanner, and certainly Councillor Whiffen was involved with the Cataracts behind the scenes. Yes. As they won some herders. I don't know how many saves he made in his career, but we'll see. We're gonna put him to the test here. He's gonna have to make some saves around here at times, I'm sure. Yeah, Clarenville, the Herder champs, and I guess there's a bit of justice for Clarenville, especially the way the Herder ended last year, and they weren't taking any chances there this year. They made quick work of the St. John's Capitals, 4 straight, and I got to say, Clarenville really did have the best team in the province. Seen them play a couple times this year, particularly in the playoffs, and they're a big, strong, tough hockey team and very deserving. And to see Tyler win, a resident of Grand Falls-Windsor, and a good goalie, an excellent goalie, and to be played in front of Jason Churchill and all the accomplishments that he has had in his career and everything just shows how good Tyler is. So congrats to him. I'm glad you brought that up. Councillor Feener.
I'd like to congratulate the Autism Society. Our local chapter on Friday, April 13th, was Inside Out Day for the autism in Newfoundland, Labrador, and part of the Inside Out, I guess, is that some autism kids are very sensitive to sound, hearing, touch. So one Inside Out was a shirt turning inside out so the tag wouldn't touch your neck and the inside seams and stuff. So on Friday night there, us at the theatre there, we actually had all of our staff wear all of our shirts inside out for the entire night. And there was $1 collected on ticket sales, and we matched dollar for dollar to donate to our local chapter. So I just want to thank Autism Society for a job well done. It was well put together. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Whiffen. Councillor Finn. Deputy Mayor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of reminders. Their spring cleanup schedule is out. It's on our town app, on our town Facebook, and on our town webpage. So I think it happens in May, Mr. Director? Yeah, it happens in May. So the schedule is out and is easily accessible. I'd like to remind people about the town app again. The town app is free to download. We got a big announcement here Tuesday morning with respect to the Salmon Festival. And if you had the town app, the Economic Development Officer, Mr. Hennessy, will be sending out notices as the events for the Salmon Festival are announced here in the chambers. So if you want the information, you want to quickly just download our town app, Mr. Mayor, and you'll have that. The town of Grand Falls-Windsor is having a hazardous waste day. I know it was a big initiative of you and I think Councillor Finn as well. I think this took place a few years ago and we haven't had one in a year or two. But the town of Grand Falls-Windsor is having another one, and the hazardous waste day will be May 12th at the Shawn Centennial Park. And for any further information, if you've got dangerous goods at home and you're wondering how to get them to the hazardous waste day, well, just phone our Public Works number, 489-0420, and they will assist you in getting your hazardous waste, or at least explain you how to get it to the drop-off area for that day. Big congratulations, Mr. Mayor, to the North Cliff Drama Festival. I think their play Dinner with Friends, they put that performance off at the Provincial Drama Festival in Cornerbrook just last week, and for the first time in 60 years, Grand Falls-Windsor and North Cliff Drama Festival, or North Cliff Drama Club, won for Best Play at the Provincial Drama Festival. So hats off to Director Dave Anthony and the cast and the crew for that performance. Like I said, 60 years has been a long time in between wins. And congratulations, and I know those guys put off the performance just this past week, I think, at last week at the Arts and Culture Centre. So we can only hope that the guys do it again and give more people the chance to see what was obviously an excellent edition of Dinner with Friends. And finally, Mr. Mayor, hats off to the Grand Falls-Windsor Minor Hockey Association, who just completed a very successful season. I know that the association held the provincial PWB tournament here and the Adam Mega tournament, both very successful for our local teams. And right from our girls program to our midget program, we had a very successful year in conversation with their president, Mark Griffin. So congratulations to Grand Falls-Windsor Minor Hockey. They had an excellent, impressive showing across the island Easter week when the year-end tournaments for those associations are played. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor Brown. Lots of good results, and I think some more banners that'll be coming our way for provincial championships was also good to see. And the Household Hazardous Waste Day, it's been a while since we've had one, and of course you can bring hazardous waste to North Arm and have it disposed of as well, but as a matter of convenience, and we all know when things are convenient, people are more apt to take part. So if you have batteries or aerosol containers or paint or tires or things that you cannot put out in your normal cleanup or our spring cleanup, which is also coming up in May, then certainly bring it over on May the 12th and we'll have it disposed of properly. Councillor Claire Davis.
Thank you. Just a few reminders for me this evening. The Exploits Regional Chamber of Commerce is going to hold their annual general meeting this Thursday, April 19th. And the speaker for the evening is the Minister of Finance, Tom Osborne. So that event is open to the public. You don't have to be a member of the chamber to attend that function. So I wanted to make that clear. You know, if you're just a member of the general public and are interested in attending that event, it is a dinner and the annual election of officers. you can contact the chamber and arrange a reservation for that event. I would encourage you to do that tomorrow because, of course, they have to prepare for the meals and that. Municipalities Newfoundland and Labrador are hosting the Central Regional meetings this weekend here in Grand Falls-Windsor at the Mount Peyton Hotel. Myself, as well as some of the councillors around the table here, will be attending, as well as municipal leaders from across the central area. And that'll start on Friday at noon and work into Saturday afternoon, late afternoon. And some of the topics on the agenda, again, will be asset management, which we know is a really hot topic for municipalities as of late, with the new regulations for funding and things like that from federal and provincial government. Regional government is also up for discussion, as well as welcoming communities. So those topics as well as others. So we're looking forward to a successful weekend there. The Miss Teen and Little Miss Grand Falls-Windsor pageant is happening this year on May the 26th. Applications are available here at the Town Hall or on the grandfallswindsor.com website. For the Little Miss contestants, you have to be between kindergarten and grade 3. And for Miss Teen Grand Falls-Windsor, grades 7 to 12 are eligible. And the deadline to apply for the pageant is April the 27th. So I would encourage, if you're interested, if you have a family member or a friend who you think would be interested, to let them know. Again, the deadline to apply is April 27th, and the pageant will take place on May the 26th. And as well, the Queen Street Dinner Theatre will be holding auditions on May the 1st and 2nd at 7:30 at the Mount Peyton Hotel. And they're looking for high school, college, or university students. There is a list of songs on the QueenStreetDinnerTheatre.com website that they would like you to have prepared for your audition. So I would encourage students to certainly check that out. Every year the dinner theatre, is very well attended. The attendance last year was up from previous years. It's a great tourist attraction, some great exposure, and a great summer job. So I'd encourage students with talent, like myself, to certainly take advantage of those auditions, and hopefully we'll be able to see you on stage performing at the Queen Street Dinner Theatre. They have 3 productions this year: A British Invasion, Fools Rush In, and The Lunchtime Love and War. And this year there is a one-time showing with the band Courage in August, so I would encourage residents to look out for that one as well. And that's all I have, Mayor. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Cody Davis. I've got a few things to go through. Of course, this week, if you didn't know, is Volunteer Week, and an important week to recognize all the volunteers in our respective communities. And we have been very fortunate in Grand Falls-Windsor to have many, many great volunteers. In fact, more citizens than not, I think, do volunteer in some capacity. I know last year during our civic awards, of all the awards that we presented, the Volunteer of the Year got the most nominees. We had somewhere around 20 nominees for the Volunteer of the Year, and this is Volunteer Week, and where would we be without them? Really, I mean, without volunteers for all the different groups and events and that go on, essential. So pat on the back for all volunteers this week. Just want to thank everybody for supporting the 3rd annual Fill It Up with food drive. Jack and Gabrielle Kelly Brinston were involved again this year, as well as our local food banks, the Salvation Army Food Bank and the Grand Falls-Windsor Bishop Falls Food Bank. And we outdid ourselves this year because it was just an enormous amount of food that was delivered to the respective food banks. We had a town pickup truck that was backed into the town hall, and it was filled to the brim. We could not fit any more in there. An enormous amount of food, and obviously the food banks are very appreciative of that. It will go a long ways to help what they do very well, that much needed service that they provide, and it couldn't have happened or been as successful without people taking the time to drop their food donations to the town hall. So thanks to everybody for that, and we'll certainly be looking forward to the 4th annual Fill It Up with Food in 2019. I'd just like to send out birthday greetings. Miss Teresa Goodger had her 100th birthday just recently. I can't recall the date now. It was a couple of weeks ago. She resides at Golden Years Estate, and her late husband, Ray Goodger, people will remember as a longtime baseball enthusiast in town, and played for many, many decades and played baseball right into his 90s. And Teresa, her 100th birthday, so wow, what an accomplishment. Still very bright and very spry, and had the opportunity to go down and visit with her on her birthday, and I wanted to make sure she was recognized here publicly. I would like to congratulate someone I think everybody here knows, a friend of mine, Miss Holly Dwyer, who was recognized just this past week with a prestigious award in teaching. She was given the 2018 Teaching Excellence Award for Region 1 of College in North Atlantic. And if you're wondering where Region 1 is, it includes the Northeast area of North America, New England states, Puerto Rico, Rhode Island, Quebec, and Atlantic Canada. So it's a big region, and she received that award. And anybody who knows Holly, she does not like the spotlight at all. And I know she really feels, I guess, somewhat embarrassed about this, but anybody who knows her knows what a great job she does. And I'll just refer to a paragraph in the news report. It talks about some quotes from the students that Holly teaches. Some of the quotes were, "She makes you want to come to class." She's engaging, inspiring, exceptional, selfless, encouraging, earns respect, generally cares for the students, has high standards of professionalism, and is passionate about her industry for teaching. And I think that says a lot, but really, I know Holly cares a lot about her students. She can be unconventional at times. I haven't had the good fortune to have Holly teach me, at least not in the classroom. She's given me good life lessons outside during our relationship as a friend for since we were probably about that high. But I know Holly's very passionate about teaching, and it's good to see her get that recognition. And now she's going to be nominated for an international teaching award, so hopefully she can get that as well. And of course, Holly also helps out along with Sarah McIntosh at the Recreation Department in our annual Civic Awards, and anybody who attended that last year, it was a great production, and Holly is back working with Sarah on that again this year, and we look forward to that very soon. The last thing I'll mention is the meeting, I guess, we had with the reviewer for the external review for Central Health, Dr. Peter Vaughn. Members of council and myself met with Dr. Vaughn today, had an opportunity to take an hour and to give our presentation in terms of this external review, how it may impact Grand Falls-Windsor. We talked a lot about the many good things that we've been doing in partnership with Central Health, which there are many, and we talked about some of our concerns as well, and where this is going is still somewhat undetermined. I must say it was a good meeting, I felt. He was also forthcoming with some information to us. We did present Dr. Vaughn with a letter, and that letter will be made public. I would say tomorrow morning we'll put that out for the general public to review if they so choose, and the media can also have a look, and if they want to discuss that further with us, I'm sure we can make ourselves available to do so. But Central Health, very important to our community and our region. Our hospital serves a very, very big population here, and as we've said all along, we just want to make sure that once the review is done and it gets into the hands of government, that it's used in a way that will not negatively impact Grand Falls-Windsor, and certainly not any of the great work that we're doing. We look forward to it. One thing that Dr. Vaughn was saying is that we need to look at things differently. As a government, we need to be looking at healthcare differently. I think he used the statistic that in the year 1900, it would take 50 years to double your healthcare knowledge. So what you knew in 1900, you'd know double by 1950. Now, it takes 1 year to double your healthcare knowledge. So it just goes to show technology and other means that it's evolving very fast, but we tend to be doing a lot of the same things we've been doing for a long time. So I think government is going to hear that message in this report, and it'll be interesting to see how they handle it, and certainly we'll be looking forward to that. And that letter will be distributed tomorrow to the public and the media. With that, I don't have anything else. I'd like to thank our friends at Rogers once again, Mr. Des Hines and Jeff Barry, for putting up with us for a couple hours and staying awake for the whole time. And Jordan Maloney from the Advertiser, thanks Jordan. And Mr. Simmons, thanks for your presence as usual. And with that, I'll call for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Bennett, seconder. Councillor Finn. All those in favor? Aye. Councillor Mondit? Motion carried. We'll see you next time.